Welcome back, everyone. We will start our afternoon session of the ESI Conference in just a minute. Thank you for joining us. All right, it looks like we are officially at 1:30. So thank you everyone who joined us this morning to kick off the ESI conference. And thank you for coming back this afternoon to hear about sustainable purchasing tools. We'll hear from our new steward, Ajinomoto, and we'll finish the day with staff from DAQ discussing EV charging in the VW settlement. So I hope everybody had a great lunch. You were able to stretch your legs, get out maybe outside, our beautiful Carolina weather. As I said, to start the afternoon, we'll have Jan Harden with our Waste Reduction Partners program to discuss a newly developed purchasing toolkit. Jan is the Waste Reduction Partners Solid Waste Program Manager. In this role, she coordinates the progress of WRP's solid waste team of retired engineers. Jan also directly serves as a variety of clients in the states, both commercial, industrial, agricultural, educational, and government sectors with no-cost technical assistance for waste reduction initiatives. Jan and her WRP team help clients divert thousands of tons of landfill waste from each year and avoid disposal costs by finding outlets for hard to recycle materials, improving recycling programs, and implementing green manufacturing. So Jan, I see your presentation on the screen. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be here to talk about resources for sustainable purchasing. And the toolkit that I will discuss, if I can get the slides to advance. Okay, wait a minute. There. Okay, the toolkit I will discuss is mostly focused on recycled content purchasing, but I will show you several resources that are linked to this toolkit that will help you explore broader sustainability goals. And at the end of my slides, we'll go online and actually look at a few of the pieces of the toolkit. Wait a minute, that went backwards. Okay, no, it didn't. Okay. All right, so Dawn this morning told you all about Waste Reduction Partners, so I won't spend a whole lot of time about this, but in case there are folks who are just joining us, our Waste Reduction Partners program is a non-regulatory, no-cost technical assistance program. And we are partnered with the Department of Environmental Quality and the DEECS program, and we help businesses and government entities with solid waste reduction, energy efficiency, and water conservation. And we recruit retired engineers and scientists. And right now we have approximately 40 different team members across the state. So environmental purchasing strategies have always been part of WRP's recommendations to our clients, especially with our energy assessments and our water assessments, because we are essentially recommending energy efficient upgrades for those facilities. So with this toolkit, we wanted a special push for recycle content purchasing in order to support the domestic market development of the recycling industry and to help build the circular economy. We had a lot of partners in this project, and in particular, the North Carolina Recycling Business Assistance Center was a fantastic partner. And we also got support from the Southeastern Recycling Development Council, the Carolina Recycling Association, the Association of Plastics Recyclers, and we were extremely grateful for funding from the Environmental Protection Agency. So with the EPA funding, we were able to develop our toolkit, and this is how you find it. You go to our Waste Reduction Partners website, which is wastereductionpartners.org. In the top right corner, it's entitled Recycling Means Business. You click on that link, and it takes you to this page. So this is where all of the different aspects of the work we did to help tell a better economic development story for the recycling industry in North Carolina is housed on this page. And the one we'll focus on today, the toolkit, is in the blue box. But I also want to mention in the center in the gold box, we have also developed business profiles to highlight manufacturing facilities in North Carolina that use recycled content and the products they produce. So at the end, when we're walking through the toolkit, we'll also look at a few of these. And our partners at the Recycling Business Assistance Center also did a job study for the recycling industry in North Carolina, and the results of that are in the red box at the right. So looking a little closer at the toolkit, this is an online and dynamic toolkit, which is why we still say draft. We're probably always going to say draft because we're going to be adding content throughout, really. We're going to be trying to develop the specifications a little bit more, and we'll make sure to be linking with the most current resources. For example, the EPA Comprehensive Procurement Guidelines are being updated as we speak. So as those are updated, then we'll update this toolkit as well. And it is geared not only to government purchasers, but also private sector purchasers. So as you'll see in a second, there's resources and specifications that will help manufacturers and other businesses. So there's a few primary sections of the toolkit, and that is the purchasing information and the key specifications. And then we have the resources section, which has additional information such as the links to the sustainable purchasing resources that I mentioned earlier. And we also have a statewide contract listing. And so this section is geared toward government purchasers in North Carolina because if you are a state agency or a local government entity, this section will list the contracts that are available with products with recycled content. And on this slide, I know that it may be hard to read, but this just shows you all of the different product categories that we cover within the toolkit. Just to call out a few of them. For example, everybody buys paper still, so we've got a section on paper products and some of the key specifications and information that's important to consider when buying those. And we also have plastic office products listed. And so we know both public and private sector folks buy those materials. Some of the categories that are more suited to the private sector include the industrial products. This has different things like pallets and crates and Gaylord liners. And then we also have a section on packaging. So if your entity is considering changes in your product packaging, this is a good resource to look to. So in our resources section, this is where we have some of the links to the broader information on sustainability. For the public sector, the NASPO Green Purchasing Guide is an excellent resource. That's the National Association of State Procurement Officials. But really, that guide is useful for everybody. It has example policies, purchasing policies you might consider for your organization. And it also has a lot of different specifications that cover more than just recycled content. Next, we have the Environmental Purchasing Program and Sustainable Marketplace within the EPA. And this is one we'll look at a little bit more closely in a future slide. But this is a great resource. And then we also link to the Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council, as well as the Sustainable Packaging Coalition. As you know, there's layers and layers of sustainable purchasing strategies: energy efficiency, water efficiency, buying in bulk, buying from suppliers who are as local as possible. Returnable shipping containers are a great purchasing strategy, and getting into a reuse loop with those shipping containers with your suppliers. And also purchasing products with lower toxicity. I know later in our ESI conference, there'll be a presentation from the EPA Safer Choice program. So this is a great way to steer you towards products with lower toxicity, and we'll learn about that more later in the conference. So the Safer Choice, as you know, is an eco label. And so eco labels can be a great strategy for finding sustainable products. But there's so many eco labels out on the marketplace. There's more than 450 eco labels. So luckily, the EPA has, as part of its environmental purchasing program, has evaluated these eco labels, and they've really honed down to the ones that are very trustworthy and applicable to public and private sector purchasing agents. So whatever your particular organization's sustainable purchasing goals might be, there's probably an eco label for you. And this particular page at EPA will help you find that eco label. And we'll look a little bit more closely at this particular page when we're finished with the slides and go out on the internet. So the General Services Administration has worked really closely with the EPA Environmental Preferable Purchasing Program to take all that information about the eco labels and figured out which of the both private labels and also the EPA labels that they have. It's organized those based on product categories that your organization might be looking for, like building furnishings, for example, or office furniture. So this is another page that we'll look at more closely, but this tool at sftool.gov is a fantastic tool for sustainable purchasing, because you can go to the area in the circle that's titled Procure, and you can see all of the products that meet the eco label standards. And in the world of purchasing, when you're trying to convince your purchasing agents that you need to look at environmental attributes, a lot of times the purchasing agent will be concerned that there's not as many products out on the market that can meet those standards. But this is a great tool to show, well, actually, there's many different products that are available, and this can help alleviate those concerns about the competitiveness that they'll see on a contract or a bid. And also just a quick mention about the EPA's Recon tool. This is for recycled content again, but this shows you how recycled content can help with your broader environmental goals. So if your organization purchases materials with recycled content, you can use this tool to figure out what exactly that translates into in terms of greenhouse gas reduction. So there's a couple of different versions of the tool. There's an Excel-based version, and there's also a web-based version. And this page can take you and walk you through those particular versions and help you compute your savings. So back to the homepage for the information that we worked on with the EPA grant. I mentioned to you before that we looked at North Carolina manufacturers using recycled content and the products they produce. So I just wanted to mention real quick, these are examples of some of the profiles that we did for North Carolina manufacturers. And so these are not only manufacturers that are producing products with recycled content, but they're local. So if there are ways in which you can incorporate some of these materials into your organization, these profiles tell you a little bit about the business and a lot about the product, and then also how to purchase those products. And if you are a manufacturer that makes a product in North Carolina with recycled content and we've not done a profile for you, please know we would love to do one, and please be sure to reach out to me and we'll get that started. So if you're worried about having the time to look at a lot of these different tools and strategies, please feel free to reach out to Waste Reduction Partners, because we're offering this as part of our technical assistance to businesses and government entities in North Carolina. So if you are a manufacturer that wants to use more recycled content in your products and you're not sure where to go to seek that recycled content, we can help you find sources. And then if your purchasing agents are struggling with the development of the specifications or struggling with trying to find suppliers of those products, we are more than happy to do research on your behalf. And one final thought about sustainable purchasing. Really the very best strategy to implementing sustainable purchasing in your organization is to make sure that your purchasing agent is on your green team. So that way your program can really be well suited to your organization, and all your specifications will be taking into consideration your specific site. So make sure to include your sourcing department or purchasing agent on your green team. And this is my contact information. If you want one-on-one assistance, please don't hesitate to contact me. and myself or someone else at WRP will be able to help you one-on-one. And now I'm going to try to walk you through some of these on the internet. So as I mentioned, the best way to get to the toolkit is to go to our wastereductionpartners.org website. And then in the top right corner, you click Recycling Means Business. And the blue box at the bottom left is our toolkit. So we'll go here. And on the left, you see a table of contents. So this is where you navigate. So we start off by describing how to use this guide. We've got a description of why it's important to buy recycled and some definitions, and then also the resources section. So as I mentioned before, the EPA Environmental Purchasing Program is such an excellent resource to look at a broader sustainable purchasing program. So this is the EPA's site, and they have a whole marketplace that lists products and services based on different categories and all the standards and eco labels that apply to those particular categories. So here's the product categories. It can be construction, custodial, and then as you see, electronics is one of the categories. And I wanted to particularly point out that the EPEAT program is such a great program for helping your organization find products that meet sustainability goals. So this is the best way to get to a list of all of the computers, imaging equipment, mobile phones, servers that meet the standards established by the Global Electronics Council. So be sure if your organization is looking at electronics to visit this page, because the EPEAT program is a great eco label. And Energy Star, of course, is another great label that comes into play with electronics. So that shows you at least just one of our resources that are on the toolkit. And we'll go back to the looking at the table of contents. On the left side, you see we have our key products and purchasing information. I'm just going to click on a few of these just to show you. We have it organized by, we start with purchasing information, and then we get into some of the key specifications, and then we talk about resources that are more specific to that particular product category. So in the case of paper products, we just share some information such as avoid brightness standards, and if your organization is doing a publication, be sure to let your graphics designers and printers know of your interest in recycled content. If you want to have more environmental attributes to consider with your paper purchasing, the resources for additional information down below can take you to some additional standards. So all of us can use these this information and key specifications when we're buying paper products. I also want to point out the industrial products section. Again, it's organized the same way: purchasing information, key specifications, and resources. So under the resources, I wanted to let you know we link to the APR Demand Champions program. And they have an excellent list of vendors in the Demand Champions program that can be appropriate for manufacturing facilities in North Carolina. So under the APR website, if you click on the work in progress items, this shows you all of the different suppliers of pallets and totes and slip sheets and dividers that have recycled plastic content. So this can be an excellent resource for manufacturers. Okay, and then one final thing that I wanted to point out is I mentioned in the slideshow that the GSA has the website called sftool.gov, and this is where I mentioned that you can go look at the different product categories. I think the next page back. Okay, this shows you all of the different product categories on this sftool.gov. This is all linked to the Environmental Preferably Purchasing Program at EPA. So if you forget this website, you can just go there to EPP. But this shows all of the products that meet those eco labels that were evaluated by EPA. So just real quick, this is the last example. I'm going to just show you under building finishes, for example. You can click on, let's say we're looking for carpet, and this shows you all of the eco labels that can apply to a purchase of carpet. And if you wanted to look at brand name products that meet those requirements, you click on that green box at the top, and this takes you to this huge product database and information about the supplier. And like if you were to click on the product, it shows you all of the details, what certifications and standards they meet, and more about contacting the manufacturer and asking more questions. So this resource is excellent for your broader sustainability goals. I think, let's see, okay. Yep, that was it. And I'm almost out of time anyway. So I will stop sharing my screen. And if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And please don't hesitate to reach out for one-on-one assistance.
So there are not currently any questions in the chat box, but if anybody wants to type one in right quick, we have a few minutes. Or if you want to raise your hand, we can open up your line and you can talk directly.
And thanks again for having me here today. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Jan. It's always good information coming from you and WRP.
Thank you.
All right, not seeing any questions. So we'll take a very quick break, about 3 minutes, and get ready for our next presentation coming up at 2 o'clock.
Just saw Mike's hand go up. I don't know if Jan's still on or not.
I am here.
Okay, hold on. Let's unmute Mike. Oop, and I just saw, I think, okay, it says Mike, you're self-muted on my end. Oop, hand went down. All right, I see Carrie's hand up though. Carrie, you're self-muted too, so you wanted to ask a question.
Oh, I'm so sorry with stumbling around with the controls.
Oh, it's all good.
Oh my goodness. I wanted to type and for whatever reason the questions box won't let me do it. So here I am. I was curious, and maybe the SF tool that you shared would be a resource, but it seems like it's an emerging area to be thinking about low carbon for, say, building materials in particular. And I was wondering if you're starting to see any resources that speak to that.
That is a good question. And let me just look and see. I think that, trying to see if the EPA has a tool that might help specifically with lowering carbon footprint. I think, the WARM model is maybe the best resource in that case, but it doesn't necessarily tie you to specific products. Let me just Google this real quick.
Yeah, that's a good point. I had been exposed to the WARM model for something in the past, and you're right, I don't remember it in the context of a product.
Yeah, it's kind of more about actions more so than purchasing. So, but if it happens to be a product that has recycled content, that recon tool can help with
Okay.
figuring out the greenhouse gas reduction. But if it's looking at products that don't necessarily have recycled content, I don't know if the WARM program has a tool that helps you calculate that.
So Jan, we've got a couple EPA folks on, and Julia just typed in the question box a link to a calculator. So let me copy
shared it.
that. Oh, you did? Thank you, Angela.
Okay,
You saw it
great.
first.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
All right, well, we are at 2 o'clock. If anybody wants to get hold of Jan, feel free to contact us if you didn't happen to catch her contact info, and we'll be happy to connect you. All right. Lisa, were you going to do the next intro?
Sure.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Lisa Shanklin, one of the ESI coaches. And next, we're going to hear from Paula Salas and Ricky McFarland, who work at Ajinomoto Health and Nutrition North America, Inc., our newest stewards. Paula graduated from East Carolina University with an undergrad in nutrition science and master's in environmental health. She has worked in the industrial hygiene environmental health field close to 4 years now and has been with Ajinomoto for the last 2 years and 5 months. Ricky also attended East Carolina University. He started his career in 1977 at Cutter's Lab in Clayton, which is now Grifols, another ESI steward. He's been at Ajinomoto for 32 years, 20 of those years in production and 12 years in EHS. Thank you both for your time today, and we look forward to hearing about all the great things at Ajinomoto.
Okay, we're seeing your slides, Paula, but we're not hearing you yet.
Hello.
There you are.
Thank you. I apologize. I was trying to find the unmute button here. All Alrighty. So to begin with, Ricky is gonna go through a little bit of what we do here at Ajinomoto. Ricky.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Ajinomoto is a global manufacturer of amino acids and of food products. And what we do here mainly is manufacture 12 different types of amino acids. We are the only plant in the Ajinomoto group that manufacture solvent-based amino acids. And so I'm just going to give you an overview, just a general overview of our processes here at the Raleigh plant. We're located here in Raleigh on Pool Road, and it's just right off of the belt line. And so our process starts in a lab. It's a bacterial strain, and which we get from our Kawasaki plant in Japan. And from that bacterial strain, it is propagated for the desired amino acid that we want to produce at that time. And so it starts off in our fermentation department. That bacterial strain is stored at 80 degrees, minus 80 degrees C until it is ready for production. And then from there, it is thawed out, which we call a refreshing, and it is placed in a 500 ml container for pre-seed. While that is being made up, the medium in which the amino acid we desire to manufacture at that time is created, and it is transferred to a seed fermenter. The seed fermenter is where the process will actually start the culture process and cause the amino acid to grow. Once the medium is at a certain temperature, all the parameters of the culture can be met, then the material from the seed vessel, um, it is transferred into the seed media, and um, the amino acid is fed glucose, and it begins to grow. Once it has good activity, once we know it has good activity, then it is transferred to a main culture vessel, which is about 100 to 110 kiloliters in volume. We'll transfer it there where the conditions have been set, parameters have been set, pH adjustment has been set with an ammonia feed system, which provides stabilization for the amino acid growth. Again, glucose is fed until the bacteria it stops feeding. And once I say the little devils stop feeding, then it is brought out into another tank that can hold um, that media, that material. Normally, this step takes about uh, 3 to 5 days. More than likely, it's about a 5-day process for each amino acid once it gets to brought out conditions. From there, it goes to our separation process. I forgot to mention at the beginning, we have three main processes on the plant, and that is the fermentation process, the separation process, and the purification process. And all those processes, they actually do what the name suggests. Separation, we separate any impurities from the amino acid, from the desired amino acid that is in the product itself. That's what we do. It goes through an ultrafiltration system, and if necessary, it will, if it has any ammonia in that desired amino acid, then it is removed through a double effect evaporation process. And from that process, in separation, it may go through a dechloridation process where any solids or any heavy salts and things of that nature are removed, because some of those things are added during the fermentation process, the vitamins, salts, and things of that nature to create the media for the amino acid to grow. And so once the impurities are removed from the separation product, their final material is either a crude solution or is a crude crystal. The crude solution is kind of a yellowish tint or light brown color, and the crude solution, it is maybe a yellowish tint, but it is more like a rock salt. And that is um, discharged in the centrifugation process, in the separation processes into a 400 kg super sack. And those super sacks that are stored on in the crude tent until testing in the lab is completed, and we know how much amino acid is in the batch at that time. The once the material is completed in the separations department, it goes to the purification department. I spent about 18 years in the purification process, supervising that department, so I'm pretty knowledgeable of the purification process. But the only thing you can do in purification is make it pure, make it white, and make it pyrogen free. And so we go through a process called the dissolution step in the purification process, which is the initial step. And we either dissolve the crude amino acid, or either we will dilute the crude solution. And from there, once we get a desired concentration, what we'll do is either run it through another dechloridation column to remove any more impurities or any more salts, and then we will collect it as a filtrate. From there, we'll add activated carbon to remove color and some other raw materials, and then we'll filter it through a filter press and collect that um, um, carbon out of the material and collect the filtrate in a supply tank for our ultrafiltration process. During the ultrafiltration process, what we're doing is removing pyrogens from the amino acid. Um, and it is collected into a feed tank for the evaporation process, where we remove water or concentrate the amino acid down. Depending on the amino acid in the process that we're processing or manufacturing at that time, um, the material may start out at either 20 kiloliters, or it could be 80 to 90 kiloliters. And to give you a more picture of what a kiloliter is, I think it's 256 gallons in a kiloliter of solution. And
I think we lost your audio there, Ricky or Paula, whichever one of you can hear me.
Hello?
Hello, now we can hear
Okay.
you.
Alrighty.
okay.
Nope, I think we've lost you again.
I apologize. I'm not sure what happened with Ricky's audio, but I think we can move forward to the next slide.
Sounds good. Thanks.
We still can't hear you, Ricky.
Hello?
Yes, Paula.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to get the microphone on Ricky to work.
Hello? Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you now.
Okay, you can hear me now, so I had to switch headphones.
Okay.
All right. From the filtrate process, we then continue on to the evaporation or ultrafiltration and evaporation process. During the ultrafiltration process, we remove any pyrogens out of the solution, and from there it is processed through or transferred to the evaporation process called a calandria. We have three different types of calandria on the plant. We have one calandria that is capable of removing 2.8 kiloliters of water from the vessel, from the amino acid. Per hour, we have one that is 3 point, that's capable of removing 3.4 kiloliters of vapor an hour from the amino acid, and we have one that is capable of moving 3.8 kiloliters of vapor from the amino acid doing per hour during the evaporation process. So you can see it would take either 8, maybe 10 hours, or it could take anywhere from 18 to 20 hours to evaporate one amino acid. Um, the evaporation process is just basically removing water from the amino acid until it is a slurry. A slurry is the crystal that is just housed in a solution, a small amount of solution. And once all of the solution has gone through the ultrafiltration and the evaporation process, then we can determine what our calculated volume of amino acid we have in the solution itself. Once that is done, it is discharged into a crystallization vessel. Um, that crystallization process is just to cool down the amino acid after a maturation period. We either have a 30-minute to an hour maturation period to give the amino acid to develop into the size and shape of crystal form or crystal that is desired. And once that is, it'll start cooling down the amino acid so it can be managed inside of the clean room. Once it hits the evaporation step, the ultrafiltration and evaporation step, it is a closed process. Human hands don't touch it any longer until inside of the clean room and the centrifugation process begins. During the cooling process, also, we want any fines in the crystallization process to mature as much as possible also. And so not only are we cooling the amino acid, but we're giving the opportunity for any fines in the amino acid to grow into a mature crystal. Once it gets down to the desired temperature, then there is another maturation period, and it is ready to be dewatered through the centrifugation process. And so the centrifugation is just dewatering, and that solution that is collected off of that material is we call it mother liquor, because it still has amino acid in it. And so we collect that into a tank, and depending upon what the amino acid is, we may recycle it back to the separations department, or we may recycle it in the purification department um, to increase our yields for that series of amino acid. Once the centrifugation process is complete, the material is transferred or charged into dryers. We have 4.5 metric ton conical dryers that will charge that material to. And normally our batch sizes range anywhere from maybe 2 metric tons to about 3.6 metric tons. Our yields, depending on the amino acid, is usually between 68% or 85% again. And so we do have the capacity or the room for the amino acid in the conical dryer. In that drying process, what we'll do, we'll pull a vacuum on the dryer, and it has a tube sheet around the dryer jacket itself. And so we'll run hot water through that tube sheet and rotate the dryer while it's under vacuum, and it removes the moisture from the dryer, from the product. After about 10 hours or so, we will sample the product for moisture content. We want a zero moisture content. And if the moisture content is above 1%, we will continue to dry for another 3 to 4 hours and resample. Once we get the desired moisture content, which is less than 1% moisture, we'll dry additional 2 to 4 hours, and then we'll cool the product down. And from there, once the product is cooled, usually takes 3 to 4 hours, we will package it in a 50 kg fiber drum or either a 25 kg fiber drum. Most of our products are packaged into a 25 into a 50 kg fiber drum with 3 ml, 3 ml plastic liners inside of the drum. And that is the end of our process until the lab finished with the final sampling, and the material is prepped for shipping. As far as significant aspects on site, we do have probably currently maybe 100 to 150 aspects on site. Depends on the job, depends on the area, but our significant aspects are offloading and storage of isopropyl alcohol, offloading and storage of methanol, and offloading and storage of ammonia. We do have an emergency response team on site where they are trained in case something happens, um, um, that we can manage here on site. And we also have the fire department that is directly in front of us, Station 12. And so we do have emergency response in case there is something that doesn't go correct or normal with the process with these materials. Other examples of of aspects on site could be the air emissions. We have an air permit. We are small when it comes to our air permit. So we have the boilers that we monitor emissions from our boilers. They're all natural gas boilers, so there is no VOCs that are emitted from into the atmosphere. Also, we have a scrubber system for our caustics that we monitor. Um, um, on a daily basis. And also we have um, 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 alarm systems on our ammonia systems, ammonia tanks, and we have sensors that are outside in different locations for the ammonia systems, so that we can pick up any type of detections if there's a significant leak of anything. Also, aspects of energy use are utility department, water, air, steam, um, on those anything of those natures that is used in the production area. Transportation costs, of course, on site. We do have lifts, and also we manage containers on site, and also our off-site warehouses. We have some off-site warehouses that are about a mile apart from the main campus, and so we have traffic between the warehouses and the main campus, and we're moving around those containers. And then you have the packaging aspect of fiberboard, the cardboard, the plastics, and the imported plastics, things of that nature. Then we have the solid waste, the cell cream, the sludge, and also the wastewater, which is treated on site. We do have an on-site waste treatment facility before our wastewater goes to the city of Raleigh. And so those are some of the aspects and the process that we have here at Ajinomoto. Okay.
Alrighty, now that Ricky has kind of given us a summary of what goes on the plant site when it comes to our manufacturing and production, and our aspects, we're kind of going to go into what our integration into our core business functions have been, when it comes to also getting us to our steward level on the environmental side of things. Some of the ways that we've really pushed environmental into our core business and making it a priority here on the plant site is by using first educating our workers here on the plant site when it comes to environmental issues. And one of the ways that we've done that is through implementing a learning management system, which includes online training when it comes to environmental awareness on site. And that can be to various subjects, and also, our associate managers are always able to ask for additional training that they feel is more relevant to their process as well. When it comes to inspection processes, we've also implemented an online app on the plant site that makes it easier and more time efficient when it comes to looking for any environmental spills or recording them and things like that. And these are more like internal minor spills, nothing reportable to the state or anything like that. Or also just during the inspection process to help assist workers out in the field when it comes to getting them to inspect and know how to inspect for any environmental issues within their processes. Also, when it comes to any environmental impact that we could have when it comes to any projects, EHS is always part of the process when it comes to conversation on new projects in the future, as well as approvals when it comes to anything that is implemented on site. And we also include the monitoring of any environmental issues that could arise, emissions or the use of carbon in our facilities, not only to the surrounding area, but also to our workers. Also, we've really picked up on trying to get our workers to understand how it's important that we're part of the stewardship initiative, and letting them know what that is, and any of the other programs that we are part of that, you know, kind of go hand in hand with the environmental push with positive impact, which is Adopt a Highway, being part of the WAIT program, which is the Wildlife and Industry Together Partnership. And another big thing here, as Ricky mentioned, is the aspect that we have when it comes to the reduction of packaging on site. We in unison with engineering and our corporate offices have an initiative to essentially streamline our final product and the packaging when it comes to that, and minimizing any waste that we could generate from it. And other fun things that we've also incorporated into our program is things like Earth Day, which is something that employees get to participate in, and also Compost Day, which is a day where we have a garden here on site that we every year, you know, for the new season, we take out any of the old things from the year prior, and we remulch and everything like that, plant new things in the garden. And during that day, we are also encourage employees to take compost with them home, so they can also take and maybe potentially make gardens of their own at their personal homes, you know, something to take away from work. When it comes to beyond compliance, these are just some other things that helped us get us to the point of where we're now stewards in this program. We have, as I mentioned, the developmental when it comes to the employee incentive program here. And that program is called the Good Catch Initiative. And this initiative essentially is incentivized to help employees want to participate more and things like that. And the biggest takeaway from this program is that when an employee sees something that could be potentially an impact to the environment, they catch it before it has any impact whatsoever or it cause any damage to the environment, and they submit that to our department so that we can follow up with it and get it taken care of. However, a big component of this program is the fact that they take some form of corrective measure of their on their own when it comes to helping prevent any impact to the environment. We have our quality, air quality testing on a yearly basis as well. When it comes to any sanitation chemicals or any housekeeping chemicals that we have on site, they go through extensive approvals prior to being used on the plant site, just because not only do we want to prevent them from impacting the environment, but also when it comes to workers on site, we want to minimize any effects or any of the interactions that they could have with workers on site when it comes to allergies and things like that. So that's another way that we've kind of vetted when it comes to chemicals on the site. And as I mentioned, we do have a garden on site, which is definitely really driven by the employees on the plant site. And we also have a program where we donate buckets to the Wildlife Resources Commission whenever they feel the need to come get some. And this is essentially used to relocate little animals to different parts of the forest on a need basis. And they use the buckets that we have on site to transport those little animals to different locations within the forest. And lastly, these are the last few things when it comes to things that help us achieve our steward level. We do have initiatives here when it comes to the reduction of DI water on site. It is a process that uses a lot of water here. And this is a partnership between production engineering and EHS in finding methods to reduce that water. And some of the ways that we've done that in the last years is implementing, taking old equipment and installing new equipment that is more efficient in the use of water in the process, as well as having condensate recovery when it comes to our steam condensate from process lines, capturing it and supplying it to our deaerator in the utilities department. Also, we have taken our pallets on site and we recycle them. We have a vendor who comes on site and takes any broken pallets that we may have and they take it and they either break it up to make some form of compost or something like that. And that's one big way that we've reduced the amounts of pallets on site. Also, we too encourage employees to bring any electronics from home so we can collect those along with any electronics on site and to recycle them, and we get them to be recycled. And one of the biggest ways that we have found to really help our community is by donating cell cream and sludge to our local Granville Farms, which is just a group of farmers who get any cell cream or any sludge that is our byproduct from our process and land apply it. And also, we do take any of our high BOD or little bugs, and we do share it with our industry partners around us who request it if they need to repopulate their ponds or any parts of their waste treatment process. And that's pretty much everything for us.
Thanks, Paula. We're a few minutes over, but we do have a quick question. Is it possible for other community members to use the buckets?
Yes, definitely. They are welcome to. You just have to let us know because we are a CGMP, so you would just have to let us know ahead of time that you're coming to pick them up, and yeah, you're welcome to use them or take them with you.
I think those were all the questions. Thank you, Paula and Ricky, and congratulations again on becoming an ESI steward.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Next, we'll be hearing from our NCDEQ Division of Air Quality about the VW settlement and how that relates to EV charging infrastructure. Stephen Rice is an environmental specialist too for North Carolina's Division of Air Quality. He has worked in air quality for 6 years and is the Level 2 program manager under NCDEQ's VW settlement program. In addition to this, he serves as the database manager for DAQ's ambient monitoring section and on NCDEQ's Diversity and Inclusion Committee and Sustainability team.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to the two presenters earlier in the afternoon session, and for Don and Lisa for giving me the invite and the opportunity to speak on the Volkswagen settlement. We're going to cover a little bit of phase 1 and also cover phase 2. We're still in the middle of phase 1, but we've begun the outreach of phase 2 since July. So I'm glad we get to talk about our plans. And today specifically, I'll be talking about the level 2 charging program. So here are the 4 main things I want to accomplish today. I want to provide an overview of the Volkswagen settlement program and zero emission vehicle, or ZEV, infrastructure awards in phase 1, provide an overview of the main ZEV infrastructure elements in the draft Volkswagen phase 2 mitigation plan, provide a comparison of the 2 types of ZEV infrastructure subprograms, and provide you with ways to get more information about phase 2 of the Volkswagen settlement program. So let's start at the beginning and ask, what did Volkswagen do? Well, in 2015, the US EPA cited Volkswagen Group of America Incorporated with Clean Air Act violations. The violations involved manufacturing and installation of defeat devices on 2-liter and 3-liter diesel engines. These devices were programmed to recognize when an emission system was being tested, and the results of the testing would show that the emissions were below federal standards for nitrogen oxide, or NOx. However, during normal operation, the actual emissions were significantly higher than when the vehicles were in test mode. Approximately 580,000 vehicles were impacted nationally, and as we get to 2006, Settlement agreements of $14.7 billion nationally were lodged by the U.S. Department of Justice and the state attorney generals with the court to resolve matters related to the violations. So there are three major components of the Volkswagen settlement: the buyback or emissions modification on at least 85% of the subject vehicles, investment of $2 billion to promote the use of zero-emission vehicles and infrastructure, and then $2.7 billion to fully remediate the excess NOx emissions from the subject 2-liter vehicles, and an additional $225 million for 3-liter diesel engines. Looking at the pie chart, it's clear that most of the settlement is going toward the buyback and modification of affected Volkswagen vehicles. The $2.7 billion in the Environmental Mitigation Trust is what went to states to be used in the name of NOx reduction, and the remaining $2 billion goes toward Volkswagen's zero-emission vehicle investment. So where does North Carolina fall in terms of allotment compared to other states? North Carolina received the 9th highest amount of mitigation trust funds, with a total just over $92 million. You'll see a breakdown of the funding amounts and how the amounts were determined on the next slide. So the North Carolina was, the allocation is set at $87,177,373.87. This is 3.23 of the $2.7 billion settlement. This is based on the number of registered subject vehicles in the state for the 2-liter subject vehicles. Additionally, North Carolina is eligible for $4,868,284.13, which is 2.16% of the $225 million settlement for the 3-liter subject vehicles. And these two totals come to just north of $92 million, or about 3.15% of the total allocation for North Carolina. To help in DEQ's mitigation of NOx, we needed to know where the subject vehicles were located. Here we can see the number of these vehicles per county, and if the county is designated as rural, urban, or suburban. We received a lot of comments in phase 1 asking us not to forget about the rural counties, and the rural and urban split was a big part of phase 1 and should continue to be a big part of phase 2. Here's a visualization showing the percentage of subject vehicles found between the 3 types of counties. Roughly 32% of affected vehicles were found in rural counties, 27% in suburban counties, and 41% in urban counties. This information was used to make the decision to dedicate no less than 32% of available funds to the rural counties in phase 1. The Volkswagen settlement has rules and limitations for when states come up with their plans on how to spend the available funds. For example, beneficiaries may spend funds from the Environmental Mitigation Trust on projects that fall within 10 eligible mitigation action categories. In short, we couldn't use the $92 million on whatever projects we wanted, so we have to make sure that all projects fall under an eligible mitigation category. Also, according to the final consent decree, the goal of each eligible mitigation action shall be to achieve reductions of NOx emissions in the United States, and the Volkswagen trustee must approve the mitigation plan and project expenditures. North Carolina DEQ used the latest emissions inventory data to identify the most prevalent sources of mobile NOx emissions. We can see that on-road non-diesel light-duty vehicles make up the highest percentage of NOx emissions, followed by on-road diesel heavy-duty vehicles, then non-road diesel equipment, locomotives, on-road diesel light-duty vehicles, and commercial marine vessels. When looking at the mobile sector NOx emissions by source, and the source's eligibility for the Volkswagen settlement projects, we can see that about 40% of NOx in the state can be mitigated directly with the Volkswagen settlement funds. When it comes to level 2 projects specifically, there's the potential to indirectly mitigate up to around half of our state's NOx emissions through level 2 charging and the use of electric vehicles through new electric vehicle infrastructure. Here we see a breakdown of the North Carolina Volkswagen Phase 1 awards. Our school bus program had 111 vehicles funded and provided over $12 million in funding. The transit bus program had 16 vehicles funded and provided over $6 million in funding. The on-road program had 45 vehicles funded and provided over $4 million in funding. The DC Fast program had 27 sites funded and provided about $2.5 million in funding. And finally, the Level 2 program had 78 sites funded and provided over $1 million in funding. Recently, one of the Level 2 projects unfortunately was terminated, so we're really at 77 sites, but the unused funds from the project will roll over to Phase 2. And this might be a good time for me to pause and talk about the differences between the DC fast charging and the level 2 charging. So when you're on long trips or pressed for time, EV drivers want a fast charge to get to where they're going as soon as possible. DC fast chargers deliver 100 range per hour or more, charging some electric vehicles to 80% capacity in 20 to 30 minutes. These chargers are more ideal for highway travel, where time is of the essence. So on the flip side to that is the level 2 charging. Most public charging stations are considered level 2, and these stations can add 12 to 25 range per hour, depending on the type of electric vehicle and its onboard charger. Level 2 charging stations are ideal for times when you'll be parked for at least an hour. Certain scenarios would be while you're at work, going to a restaurant, going to a movie theater, attending a sporting event, or going on longer shopping trips. You should note that not all plug-in cars on the road today have a DC fast charging port, and most plug-in hybrids can only charge at the level 2 level. So now let's transition to our draft for the Volkswagen Settlement Phase 2 program allocations. Over $67 million is available in Phase 2, so the potential number of projects should be much greater than what we saw in Phase 1. Full 15% of mitigation funds are allowed by the trustee for ZEV infrastructure projects for Phase 2, just like they were in Phase 1. Only 5% of funds, or around $3.3 million, is planned to go to admin costs, even though we're entitled to use up to 15%. And I can point out more differences between the DC Fast and the Level 2 programs that we see here are that the Level 2 action categories are looking to get their own RFP releases in Phase 2 to make the application process more efficient for organizations applying for specific Level 2 projects. In Phase 1, we had all the 4 categories: the public access, the workplace, the multi-unit dwelling, and the government projects all in one singular RFP. In Phase 2, we're planning to release 4 RFPs individually. Also, while DC Fast and Level 2 are both reimbursement programs, in Phase 1, DC Fast projects had contracts with the state, while Level 2 projects had agreements. The main reason behind that difference are that project costs and the length of time between the 2 types of infrastructure installation. However, in Phase 2, the Level 2 program may be incorporating the use of contracts for the state government action category. Complete and qualifying Level 2 applications were reviewed and awarded on a first-come, first-served basis in Phase 1, while DC Fast projects were selected on a scoring criteria. The main mitigation plan goals are to maximize the air quality benefits in North Carolina, consider where the subject Volkswagen vehicles were located, to improve on existing processes and programs, to select projects, consider environmental justice areas, provide more outreach to counties that are under-resourced, award funds through a transparent public process, and to devote up to the 15% of trust funds to light-duty zero-emission vehicle supply equipment. Our phase 2 priorities are heavy-duty vehicle electrification, continue to invest the full 15% for EV charging infrastructure, provide outreach to historically under-resourced counties, to continue to fund projects in rural counties, and to continue to focus on the public sector where needs are far greater than the resources available. Currently, program managers are completing site visits for completed phase 1 projects and approving claim reimbursement requests. I've personally been to 10 site inspections so far. I'm happy to report back that we already have some great projects completed. These projects are stretching from southern shores, all on the coast, all the way to the mountains in Asheville. Also, the team is currently reviewing the phase 2 public comments and finalizing the phase 2 mitigation plan. Currently, concrete timelines for phase 2 will not be available until phase 2 funding is appropriated. Eligible phase 2 projects include projects submitted by local, state, and tribal government organizations, projects submitted by public or private nonprofit organizations, projects submitted by public-private partnerships where the lead applicant represents a public sector or public-private nonprofit entity. And both public and private applicants will be eligible for the light-duty ZEV infrastructure programs. This mirrors the criteria found in phase 1. This has been said a few times already, but the light-duty zero-emission vehicle supply equipment, these projects are included as eligible mitigation projects for phase 2. We plan to use up to the 15% of allocated trust funds for the acquisition, installation, operation, and maintenance of new light-duty supply equipment. The DEQ may establish more than one process to fund these projects. Funding processes may include reimbursement, forward funding projects, and rebates or vouchers. Level 2 awardees were given vouchers in phase 1, and all project payments were in the form of reimbursements. While there is room for changes in phase 2, I would expect the funding process to remain about the same going into phase 2. Environmental justice was a big part of phase 1 and will be again in phase 2. Environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. North Carolina has this goal for all communities and persons across the state. It will be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards and equal access to the decision-making process to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work. DEQ is currently developing an outreach program to help counties that historically do not have the same resources to effectively identify eligible vehicles for grant programs, and also to submit quality applications. The team is currently preparing materials for outreach program meetings, and these meetings are tentatively scheduled for late October through November of this year. Historically under-resourced counties are those identified as economically distressed with the highest percentages of underserved populations. Underserved populations are those that meet certain racial and poverty criteria as determined by the DEQ Environmental Justice Program. Using economic criteria, a county's economic distress is defined and ranked by the North Carolina Department of Commerce. This is commonly referred to as county tiers. After combining these two data sets, 31 historically under-resourced counties were selected and are identified on this map. For phase 2 project selection, the DEQ will consider factors such as, but not limited to, cost effectiveness, NOx emission reductions, environmental justice, location of the project, co-benefits in the form of additional pollution reduction, sustainability of the project, the timeliness of the project, and the useful life of the vehicle replaced. As I said before, back in July, there were 4 webinars given that were pretty similar to the one given today, but they focused on all of the phase 2 project types. A recording of the Triangle Mitigation Plan informational meeting is available on the DAQ webpage, along with the informational meeting questions and answers. For additional information regarding the Volkswagen settlement, please visit our webpage. You can do that by clicking the hyperlink here, or by punching it in once the slides are made available, or by going to ncair.org and clicking on Volkswagen settlement. Since the public comment period has ended, the Volkswagen team has been working on consolidating comments to put forth a final draft of the phase 2 mitigation plan for the trustee. That means our next steps are to finalize that final plan and submit to the trustee to release the first 2 phase 2 requests for proposals. We have then followed by the proposal evaluations and phase 2 project awards. And again, a final timeline will not be available until phase 2 Volkswagen funds have been appropriated. We see here 3 general Volkswagen contacts. We have by Supervisor Brian Phillips, the Mobile Sources Compliance Branch Supervisor. He oversees all aspects of the Volkswagen settlement programs. We have Zainab Nassif, who is the DAQ Public Information Officer. And we have Robin Barros, who is the Allied Program Supervisor and helps us with our Volkswagen outreach. And here we have specific Volkswagen program contacts. Our school bus program contact is Sheila Blanchard. Our transit bus program is Melanie Henderson. Our clean heavy-duty diesel program manager is Jill Vitus. Our DC Fast program is Dave Willis. And again, the level 2 program is managed by myself. If you're not currently on our mailing list and would like to receive an email update about the Volkswagen settlement program, please send an email with the word subscribe in the subject line to daq.nc_VWgrants@ncdenr.gov. So that's the information I have on the draft of DEQ's phase 2 plans. I hope you were able to get a good picture of what phase 2 could look like for ZEV projects and how to stay in the loop when information for phase 2 is announced. At this time, I know we're right about 3 o'clock, but I think we can open the floor up to questions.
That's great, Steve. Don Burke here. Very thorough presentation, much appreciated. And we do have a question. Are for-profit companies allowed to submit requests?
At this time, we have government entities and any organization allowed to submit requests. The only limitation in phase 1 was essentially an individual applying on their own behalf. So as a member of the public, we couldn't have someone apply for their own level 2 charger if we're talking about the level 2 specifically, but if that individual owned a company, they could apply on behalf of that company for a level 2 rebate.
Thank you so much. I'm not seeing any additional questions at the moment.
Okay, well, Don, thank you for passing on that one question. And I'll just reiterate that there are links in the slides that hopefully will be active, or at least you can find a way to navigate yourself. There's a lot of information on phase 1 on the DAQ webpage. And as we get further along the phase 2 process, everything that we have will also be made available on those websites. Personally, in about a week's time, I'll be going on paternity leave. Excited for that, kind of running on adrenaline right now, and might not be as available as I have been the last year for phase 1, but definitely reach out with phase 2 questions regarding either the DC FAST program or the level 2 program to either Dave Willis or Brian Phillips. And I'm putting Dave's contact information right here. He's probably the first one to go to, since Dave and I kind of split the DC and the level 2 program. But for general questions about any of the programs, Brian Phillips would be someone to contact.
Great, thank you, Steve. And if we get this up on our website, if folks want to reach out to us, we can always figure it out. And congratulations on being a new dad.
Yeah, thanks. It's our first, and yep, just really excited right now. Really happy.
That's awesome. So I don't see any additional questions. So thank you to all of those folks that joined us during day 1, both our morning and our afternoon. So just to remind you, we'll be back tomorrow morning at 9:30. We're going to have our recycling staff providing updates on recycling markets, DEQ's hazardous waste staff to talk about vendor audits. We'll hear from EPA staff on the Safer Choice program, and you can learn about the projects that our ESI summer interns had. Again, you'll receive an email reminder, so you don't have to be searching through today's plethora of emails that I know that all of us have gotten. You'll get a fresh one for tomorrow, but it's the same link as the one you got today in case you saved that. And please don't forget to fill out the survey when you leave the session today. So thank you again, and we'll see you tomorrow.